Hey everyone, I was just going to cover a couple antibiotics that typically like to throw in my bag if I'm going to be a little ways away from home. There's two of these that I like to take with me. My one of my kids has antibiotic allergy, so um, I take these two antibiotics to help me cover as much as I can. And so the first one is this is like the Worcestershire metronidazole. So it's a little bit tough to say, so like Worcestershire. This is actually the kid dose. So this is a 250 milligrams. So you're looking at everything backwards because I've got the screen turned around. So typically for an adult, it's 500 milligrams each dose, and 3 times a day for 10 days will usually cover that. This is more of like your kid dose. So with this one, like this is a 100 tab bottle with 250 milligrams. It's kind of handy because all I do is for me and my wife, if we have something, we just double up on these on each dose. And so then I don't have to like carry two different bottles. So that's handy in that aspect. This one is your antiparasitic, antiprotozoa, and it's an antibiotic. So it covers your anaerobes only. Specifically, it really likes to attack obligate anaerobes. And so you can look that up yourself. And if you want to take a deep dive in that, there's gram positive, gram negative, there's aerobic, there's anaerobic, there's all these different types of bacteria out there. And so you can take a deep dive into that. Take this because of two things, because this other antibiotic that I'm going to cover, it doesn't cover your anaerobes or your parasites. So this one will actually like even like gaseous gangrene. This is one that you take that you can take. Bacterial vaginosis. Oh, one thing I do want to cover. This is another name for this is flagell. So typically you'll hear me say flagell because this name annoys me. And being the redneck that I am, it can be difficult to say for me sometimes, and I'm not paying attention. It covers Giardia, C. diff, or Clostridius difficile. So those two cause diarrhea really bad. Your Giardia, that's another one. Like if you are in another country and you start getting diarrhea and getting sick, that's your parasite that this is going to cover and get rid of that diarrhea for you. C. diff, you typically you'll get that from antibiotic usage. So you can get it from all of them, but the main one that you get it from is clindamycin. So clindamycin is known to hit that. And clindamycin is really kind of my next go-to, beside amoxicillin. So if you don't have a penicillin allergy, I'm 500 milligrams of amoxicillin 3 times a day for 7 to 10 days. Typically, if you've got an infection, and depends on when I can get you back, so use those two time frames. Clindamycin can really be exchanged if I can exchange amoxicillin for clindamycin in most instances. It's a 300 milligram tab, and it's typically I do 3 times a day. And you got to worry about fungal infections too in women, and so typically put them on an antifungal to like do diflucan or something like that as well. So that's something else that you'll want kind of in your medicine cabinet is like an antifungal. And so a lot of women will get like yeast infections and stuff. So flagell will cover tetanus, not real well, but it will cover it. So that's a bonus on this. Trick, it'll get that, and any sort of amoeba deal. So yeah, like this one here is, I think I said this earlier, but I just want to cover it again. So like this works out really well because this is more of kind of like adolescent dose, like a young kid dose. So 250 milligrams. So For an adult, it's 500 milligrams 3 times a day for 10 days. Will typically cover everything. And for kids, it'll just be most kids over about 8, depending on their weight, till about probably 13 or 14. This will be typically fine for them at 250 milligrams 3 times a day for 10 days. Okay. So my next one, since my son has a penicillin allergy, penicillins like your amoxicillin, your PenVK, even throwing your augmentants in there because it does have amoxicillin and clavonic acid in there because it's a double antibiotic. If you have a penicillin allergy, you got to stay away from all of those. Okay, so then for my instance, this one works out really well. It doesn't have quite the coverage of like a clindamycin or a penicillin, but it does still cover a lot of stuff. It does cover a strep. It does cover a staph. It does cover, all these different ones in these different families, but not to the coverage of like a penicillin or a clindamycin or a Cipro or something like that, like a really broad spectrum antibiotic. But this is really handy because the dose per person is 6 tabs over 5 days. And so this 30 tabs will cover my whole family in 30 tabs, and I'll still have plenty left over. I'll have an extra dose. And so for me to carry around a penicillin, like an amoxicillin, so just say for 10 days to really get rid of the infection, then I'm packing 30 tabs per person, so taking 500 milligrams 3 times a day. So that's this whole bottle times 4 for my whole family. So this works out really well just because of that, because the antibiotic is a really good antibiotic, and you can treat somebody over the period of 5 days, and that's it. Okay. So other names for it is Zithromax, or you've heard of the Z-Pack. Okay. This will treat lung issues, sinus infections, so like your pneumonias, and I've got some notes here that I just wanted to make sure that I cover everything that I wanted to. Pneumonias, it'll even cover your UTIs. This covers your other end for traveler's diarrhea. So this will cover your bacterial, and this will cover your parasite, protozoa. Okay. It's funny because this one, typically you think of STDs or STIs, sexual transmitted infections or sexual transmitted diseases. Typically you think of a penicillin, but this will get a few of those. So anyways, stay away from that. This will get your eye infections too, without doing eye drops. So that's pretty handy as well, because I don't know, like I was on an elk hunt, and there was a lot of mouse crap in the place we were staying, because we're out in the middle of nowhere, in kind of this barn shed thing, and there's mouse crap everywhere, and I ended up getting pink eye on my trip, and luckily I had some of this, or actually it wasn't pink eye, it was a big infected sty from that. And so luckily I had taken a box of this on my trip with me, and I knew what it was, and I started it, and the next day I was feeling better. And so just real handy to have these two in your go bag, or if you're taking a long trip and you're just kind of worried about like getting sick or anything like that, just good to have these. Now the big thing is like, don't abuse these. These do not work on viruses. They will not work on colds. They will not work on the flu. They will work on strep. This one will work on strep, some streps. And so yeah, just know what you're using these for. Jase Medical has a great manual, and I would highly recommend you getting over there, because and getting your packs for your whole family. I know some of these can be pretty pricey to get, and but I would want to have these around because there are still constantly shortages. Still having problems with amoxicillin, getting that. Luckily, we have plenty in here, but there's talking amoxicillin shortages. So that'll transfer into augmentins, your stronger, that dual antibiotic, that I talked about earlier. And so just get those, have those on hand and have them ready, just in case, you can't get them, and, you know, I have my share of mine for my family. And, so worst case scenario, if you can't get them, you've got them, so if you go to the doctor and they prescribe it to you, and you go to the pharmacist and they go, well, we can't get this, but we have to go down to this one because we have it, then you can at least get that prescription and do the prescription. If you've got it at the house, then you can still do that prescription, but still have this one, the other prescription, as a backup, And the big thing is, don't ever throw these antibiotics away, because the SLET program, it's a storage life extended program, and the government did that to see about how long these drugs actually last and what their efficacy was. And majority of them at 20 years were still like something around 90% efficacious, and so efficacious, is that actually a word? Anyways, effective at 20 years. So yeah, don't ever throw them away. The only things that I'll tell you to be worried about is anything with a time release. So if it's like some of the narcotics do have a time release in them, so you don't just get slammed all at once. Like some of them are 6 hours extended release. So if you take one of those, then you could be getting them all at once, So the time release and the liquids are typically follow that expiration date. Okay, so the big thing is just be aware of the time release, and that's kind of the whole reason why drug addicts will like chew them up or grind narcotics up, so they just get it all at once when they take it. So just be aware of that, and none of this is medical advice. So if you say I gave you medical advice, I didn't. I'm just telling you what these are for. Okay, so yeah, get over to Jase. I don't get any money from them. I just think it's a good idea to have some of these around. And I would even say, like I just saw the other day, that they have the ability to add on ivermectin. And so it's Iverhill, and I kind of looked into that. And so since China's been having a hard time getting caught up on our drugs, they're way behind on stuff because we're still having like Marcaine, which is a long-acting anesthetic. So, you're talking about a 6 to 8 hour, anesthetic in that essence. Still having a hard time getting it. Still having a hard time getting some of these meds. Now the big one is like psychotic drugs, or like even ADHD medicines. I wouldn't even put those in like a psychotic, but any of the brain drugs, they're having trouble getting. Part of that, I saw that probably 4 or 5 months ago, and my daughter has ADHD, and so like literally can't focus in school, and it's a totally different kid now. She was having trouble learning, but we're having trouble getting her meds because we get the extended release because we don't want to just slam her with meds, all throughout the day, and so that extended release is hard to get right now, and so yeah, it's a little frustrating on my end. We're finally starting to see lidocaine 50 ml vials again, and so So, but it's still hard to get that stuff, so you kind of got to be like Johnny on the spot. If you're ordering it from the company, then you kind of be got to be paying attention to order it. And so just go ahead, go ahead and get with Jase, or even what is it, Duration Health, I think, too. I don't know much about them. I don't see them like partnering up with people very often, so I don't know a ton about them. But they do have a good field manual that you can download and print, and so does Jase. You can get on there with Jase and get a manual too, and those are both great manuals to have, and print 3 or 4 copies of it off and put it in your library, stuff like that, is great to have around, because, you may be at somebody's house and, that's all you can find, so if you know what, you can look at your manual and say, oh, this is for this, then I think that's a great idea to have, or, great thing to have, so anything to have paper forms and have it, like I said, in your library, it's like, this is like half of my library right here that I've been building, so I've got my share of political books and econ books and all that stuff, but, it's good to have those things around, and, because stuff is getting hidden more and more. So, anyways, zithromycin and metronidazole, or Flagyl. So get some of those, keep them with you, and have a good one.